All right. Welcome to the first episode. We're going to talk about why we lost our love for DC. I'm going to do the introduction here. First, we're going to start with my man, Kaiser P. Kaiser, just let them know a little bit about you.
What's up, guys? My name's Kaiser. Real big YouTube, not YouTuber. Real big comic book nerd, anime, all that good stuff. Star Wars, sci-fi, science fiction, all that good jazz. It's all right up my alley. We're just trying to, I'm nervous. It's my first time doing something like this, so I don't really know what to say.
Nah, all good. And like the reason that we wanted to start this thing is me and Kaiser are pretty much family, and we've always had like debates and talked about topics in terms of, like you said, comic book stuff, whether it's anime, we're talking Dragon Ball, any kind of anime, also any kind of science fiction stuff, and we always have great conversations. And I was just like, this dude, I got to get this dude on YouTube because his knowledge is just incredible. For me, for the most part, my knowledge, I have some knowledge, but nowhere near in the realm of this guy right here. So what we wanted to do was put together a channel and do what we typically do in real life, which is debate different topics, whether it's DC, Marvel, Dragon Ball, all of that kind of stuff. So that's what we came here to bring this channel to you guys for. So as Kaiser knows, I'm not a huge DC fan. So today we're going to kind of talk about the state of DC, and it would be an injustice, no pun intended, to not let Kaiser talk about DC and kind of the history and where it's at today. So Kaiser, what are your thoughts on like DC today, and like, is there anything, do you still have love for them, or did they kind of rock the boat with the DCU?
So I still have a lot of love for DC. DC, I grew up reading DC. My first comic book was, Superman, all that good stuff. Just like a lot of people, my favorite superhero when I first was a kid was Batman. Of course, now that I'm older, it's changed. I feel like they've dropped the ball a great deal when it comes to the DC, cinematic universe. With like a lot of their movies not performing the way they probably would expect to, especially with the way Marvel's been completely killing it with the whole live action movie thing. It is kind of hard because the disappointment is there for like the movies, but I feel like they still have a chance to prove that they can do this thing, do better. Right. You just gotta find that notch and get it.
Yeah, for me, I think it's like you said, the DC cinematic universe is kind of where they lost people. Me myself, as you guys can see, I'm Team Marvel. I got the Marvel thing back there, but I always had love for some DC components. You talk about Batman the animated series. I think that's probably the best, probably cartoon of all time in terms of comic books. You talk about the Flash. I'm definitely a fan of the Flash. You look at some of the stuff that's going on in the CW, and at first I liked it, but I don't know if it's a CW thing. It's probably really a CW thing. It's kind of like corny a little bit. Like that first season of the Flash, like really had me, and like the Reverse Flash and stuff like that, and just that cast. In terms of the Flash, in terms of his villains and stuff, it's real similar to me. If I had to draw a parallel with like his villains, I would probably say he has similar villains to guys that can stand on their own, like Spider-Man. So for me, I think that's what intrigues me about the Flash. I'm not a big Superman fan. You guys are probably going to kill me in the comments about that. And this is why. So for me, the big thing about Superman is I tend to like the guys that aren't your super duper heroes. Like, oh, I'm just going to do everything right and by the book. And I think I kind of compared this to Kaiser. I tried to say like, before the new changes in Cyclops, that's one of the reasons I didn't like Cyclops. I'm a big X-Men fan. But for me, I think it's just kind of cheesy. Like, it's like Batman is like, he kind of has a little bit of an edge. So I think the cheesiness of Superman kind of gets me. I love his powers. Don't get me wrong. His powers are amazing. But the one thing that I just kind of baffles me is the fact that this guy can put on glasses and nobody knows who he is. Like, to me, I think you got to do something more secretive to get that, but it's kind of that part of it. And then I don't like the fact that one of his main antagonists is a human being. It's like he should just, and I mean, it's probably part of his corniness, which is like, I'm not gonna kill people, but he could easily end that dude in like 2 seconds. So I think from that standpoint, that's one of the reasons that I don't like Superman. Is just kind of just the whole cheesiness. Like if he had a little bit more of an edge to him, I think that I would. Now I don't completely hate Superman. Like I'm not beyond saying that I feel like Man of Steel was one of the best Superman movies, and that's just in my opinion. I really enjoyed that movie. It's not like I hate Superman to the point I won't watch his movies. We talk about the Green Lantern. I like some of the aspects of Green Lantern. Obviously, people hated the movie with Ryan Reynolds and stuff like that. But I'm cool with him as well. And then we kind of get into Aquaman. The Aquaman movie for me was not good. Like it was like a whole bunch of CGI. Like let's just throw a whole bunch of money into this, and they tried to fit too much into his storyline, and it was just like so many villains at one time, and it was just like, where is this movie going? It was just kind of like all over the place.
I think with the Aquaman thing, they were trying to like make their own like version of a Marvel movie. Because when I watched it, I was like, they had a lot of elements of, you know, the Marvel, like with
Right.
the way they handled the thing, all the bright colors. I mean, yeah, you know, especially because like Aquaman is not a lot of people's favorite superhero. No matter like, and people don't even know how like powerful Aquaman really is. I guess like that old Super Friends cartoon really just messed him up. Like he never was able to shake that image. No matter how many times they tried to retcon him, redo him, no matter how many times they try to make him a badass, he could never shake the whole my power like talk to fish thing.
Right.
And and I tell people all the time, like, I mean, yes, he kind of can, kind of can't. It depends on how you want to interpret it, but it still to take away from, like the badass Aquaman actually is. Aquaman, you going blow for blow with Superman,
Right.
like on some yeah type stuff. So
See, and that's why I wanted to bring you on, because like that's something that I didn't know. Like I knew that Aquaman could control the water. I knew how strong he was, but I didn't know he could go blow for blow with
yeah,
Superman, like you said.
like he be up there with Superman and Wonder Woman, just like casually just wrecking stuff. and and it sucks because like people don't really understand. People don't really like true like fans, like people who really do like understand Aquaman. They understand how good of a character he actually is, especially given that what he's trying to, I guess, depict being like from two different places. I guess that's the thing. I think that's really like the theme with a lot of DC's superheroes, because it's like the same thing with Superman, Wonder Woman, and Aquaman. They're like, you know, they're people from two different cultures, but they, you know, trying to make it work for like whatever. And I mean, and as far as like the Superman thing, um they explain why he wears the glasses. It's a silly, like there's a couple explanations for why. um the silliest reason, the first reason was like the silliest reason was like back in like the 70s or 80s with like Golden Age Superman, or is either Golden Age or Silver Age, and it was because he had like some kind of like ability that kind of like made what people couldn't recognize him with the glasses. I don't know, it was silly, but it kind of changed to where it's just like he doesn't wear masks because he wants people to see his face and to know that, you know, that it's him. Um, and yeah, I mean, like, yeah, Superman is a Boy Scout, but I feel like given the time that he was created, that was the thing. And given what he stands for, that's what it is. Like he stands for, you know, truth, justice, and the American way. But you see quotations for American way. But but I feel like Superman, you have to kind of like understand it. Like Superman could kill Lex Luthor.
Right.
Like he could, you know what I mean? Superman can do a lot of things. I mean, we saw Injustice, like he just goes full, you know, dictator.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, Superman is one of those type of people that like he had the way he was raised. He was raised in a rural country area by his mom and and you know adopted parents, to be humble, to be, you know, an all American good boy. In contrast to Bruce Wayne, who his parents were killed in front of him, which, you know, is a very devastating thing to happen to anyone. but where most people would have sought help, and tried to get over it, he's been spending his vast wealth on gadgets to fight crime in a bat costume. Like, I don't know, like the contrast between Superman and Batman is like, light and dark, and that line of I'm in the shadows, I'm in the light. I don't know. Batman used to like a lot of people. Batman used to be one of my favorite heroes, but I guess like the older I got, the more I
Right.
realized like Batman's just a mental health patient in a costume, run around his city beating up other mental health patients.
Right. Nah, that's real. I think that's a perfect segue into Batman versus Superman. And the other thing that kills me with Batman fans, and I'm a Batman fan, but it's like his broken thing is prep time. Like there's not enough prep time in the world for some of these challenges that he would have. But let's talk about Batman versus Superman, because to me that was kind of the big kind of downfall, I think, for DC cinematic universe, or at least that was the big first strike against him. What were your thoughts on that movie?
So watching the movie, you can see parallels from certain comic books, and it's like the director, it's like he went and I mean, and I've seen this said somewhere else, and I agree with it, that it looked like he just read like the most popular Batman comics and just put elements of that. So of course, like the scene where Batman fights Superman in armor came directly out of um the Dark Knight Returns. Um and I felt like, even in that book, like Batman beat Superman, but he didn't really beat Superman.
Right.
And I felt like they could have did so much more with the story, especially if you're gonna take from these very popular comics. I mean, you do them the right way. Don't just take the best scenes and then try to throw them into a movie, because that's not gonna work. It might look cool, but the story is gonna be a mess, just like Batman v Superman was. Then like it just was weird. Like, save Martha. Like, why'd you say that name? Why'd you say that name?
It was like, yeah, my mom and your mom share names, so this is
Yeah,
over. Like what?
yeah, like, okay, yeah, my mom said the same name, but they just threw Batman all the way off. Like, I mean, if you go take from those stories, at least go all the way through it. Don't just kind of like take parts of it and throw in this weird behind scene where he flips out because he said a name, and then just no. Batman in the Dark Knight was like, I don't care what you saying, I don't care what you got going on, I'm finna run you the hands. Which he
Right.
kind of, even though he had like a whole bunch of help, but still, he was like, he wouldn't listen to nothing that Batman. Superman said Superman was trying to talk some sense in him, and he was like, I ain't trying to hear none of that. But then you get to the movie, and it's just like, why'd you say that name? Why'd you say that name? No, bro, you supposed to be you trying to go for his neck, so it shouldn't
Right.
even matter. And I don't know, it was like there were parts of it that I did like, but there were parts of it I didn't kind of understand. Um, what's the actor that played Lex Luthor? Um,
Jesse, I
yeah,
forget, from
I
the
can't.
Social Network.
Yeah, I hate Lex Luthor. This Lex Luthor seemed more like Cletus Cassidy slash the Joker than anything else. Like,
Definitely Jesse Eisenberg. It definitely was heavy Joker influence, and like that
yeah,
didn't seem like Lex Luthor to me at all.
Lex Luthor is usually like composed, businessman, savvy, this, that, and third. He'll crack a joke here and there, but he wasn't all whatever that was. It was a weird little thing, and like it kind of made me. It was really disappointing because I thought certain, like I said, certain aspects of it were good. It could have been better. That Doomsday was super disappointing though.
Yeah, Doomsday. I think the best part of the movie. So when I first heard this, I was, you know me. I was trolling on Batman versus Superman anyway. Like when the Rotten Tomato score got released and all. But I started trolling when they said that Ben Affleck was gonna be Batman, and I have to admit that I was wrong. Like I thought Ben Affleck was gonna be horrible as Batman, especially following what Christian Bale had did. You talk about Michael Keaton, so I'm just like Ben Affleck. Where did they get this from? Surprisingly to me, I think that he did a great job as Batman. Now, there's definitely some issues in the story, like you said. It kind of jumps around all over the place. You don't know where things come from. And I think one of the aspects of it is a lot of people that are DC fans always claim that the Snyder version or the Snyder cut would have been the better version of it. It's supposed to be releasing. I don't know if it's released yet, but apparently they're supposed to be releasing the Snyder cut. But I think another thing that dealt a lot of damage to it was the fact that they kind of switched, if I'm not mistaken, they kind of fired him throughout like the filming of this, right?
I think he had I think something happened with his family. He had like a family emergency and he just never came back. So I'm not entirely too sure. I have to look it up and see. But I think like he had like a family emergency, and instead of him coming back after everything was settled to finish, he just kind of like left it alone and did whatever. But I guess I feel like he probably was honestly. I feel like he probably was like, forget this, because everybody kept saying his work was too dark. Because he did Man of Steel,
right?
Me personally, I love Man of Steel. I don't care. I mean, I would say like him snapping Zod's neck was a little bit extra.
That's what I want to see. That's the Superman that I want to see. I want to see some necks get snapped, fam.
I want to see. I felt like it was a lot of things in the Man of Steel that didn't make any sense, but for the most part, it was a good grounded Superman movie. It was dark, but then like I tell people all the time, like he was. The movies reflect the current atmosphere of the comic books at the time. DC was a little dark at the time, and so what I mean, his comics weren't too off of that, too off from where it was, So,
right.
I mean, Superman wasn't going around snapping people's necks, but it was still a little dark,
And I think so they put him in a position where he had to do that, right? Because he was gonna kill like a family or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. I think he had like an I-beam about to kill like a whole family. So I'm like, why would you get upset that Superman killed him when he was about to kill like a whole family?
He could have flew Zod up. He could have did something. It's a couple things he ain't have to snap in there. Especially because that's the Marvel thing to do with their villains, how they just kill their villains off, so they never turn again. Like, you don't just kill off Zod. Zod is like one of Superman's most powerful and long-standing arch enemies. Like,
wasn't there some kind of tie-in with like Zod with like the villain of Batman vs Superman? Wasn't there like some kind of tie-in with that? Like they like used some part of Zod or something. I don't know. It was all over the place.
They used Zod's DNA. They used Zod's DNA to create Doomsday.
What did you think of that? Like, I don't know. I feel like you said maybe they got rid of him too early.
They did, but I feel like, I mean, like in terms of Doomsday having Kryptonian DNA, he is Kryptonian. But in terms of them using Zod's DNA to use it, I think that was a nice little twist. It just wasn't executed well.
Nah, I feel you on that. I think the best part of Batman vs Superman was when Wonder Woman showed up. And Wonder Woman I think like when she showed up, like it got real. Like that was like the best part of the movie to me. And then it kind of went into, in my opinion, the DC Universe's best movie, which I think was Wonder Woman. The fact that they let that director come in and kind of completely tell the whole story, lay the foundation. I really enjoyed the Wonder Woman movie. Like I thought that it was amazing work. And I thought that the difference between Marvel and the MCU and DC and the DCU is that DC needs someone that can play that Kevin Feige role, right? Because Marvel has Kevin Feige there, so he kind of controls the overall story. Yeah, you can have different directors directing this movie, but he's making sure that it's all interweaved and connected. And DC, they just really didn't have that. They didn't have that. You kind of tried to understand, okay, are these movies connected to the Christopher Nolan Dark Knight series? Is this connected to Man of Steel? Like, where is this all tying in? Is Aquaman... like, is this taking place at the same time? There was some of that, but I think they needed to have that leadership from the director to play that Kevin Feige role. So in my opinion, I thought like when they had the success of Wonder Woman, I thought that they should have made that lady probably the Kevin Feige of the whole universe, because her storytelling was just so great. And it was like, man, if we could just get that kind of storytelling for like Superman, Batman, The Flash, like, that would be lit.
Yeah, but I guess like I think DC's biggest problem with directors is they're hiring people who don't. I'm not gonna say they don't care about the material. They don't understand the material.
Right.
Like a lot of the directors, they just like I say, like the dude who did Batman v Superman, he just kind of looked at a few pages of Batman comic book, maybe a few pages of Superman comic book, use those pages to make the movie, and go on about his bad day and collect this check. Even though it might not be that simple, but to us, it seems like that's what he did. But like it's like there's no reason why you can't make it. You shouldn't be able to make a good Batman Superman movie. There's so much material. All you have to do is take your time, read through the back catalogs. Because believe me, there are a lot of Batman and Superman comic books. I mean, ranging from the serious to the campy to the everything in between. You know what I mean? So you just gotta take your time and just write a script that meets it. And I feel like I guess DC's under pressure now to kind of compete with Marvel, and like the and cinematic universe that they have to do the whole Marvel thing. Like I guess Marvel is what is what I look for? Marvel is the standard in superhero movies, I guess. But you DC, you don't have to follow anybody's standard.
Right, exactly. And I think you hit on a great point there because obviously we've seen what the Joker did, and that was kind of on a dark kind of universe and a dark take that was very different from Marvel. And obviously, like you said, that should be the direction that DC should go in if they want to compete against Marvel, because Marvel's kind of in this whole PG-13 phase. I'm personally upset because that's the reason now that they're reporting that they're canning Deadpool 3, which I think is a total mistake, but it doesn't fit with the MCU brand because, they don't want that violence. They don't want that type of crowd. They try to sell and promote this to families. But I think DC, the dark universe, how they kind of tried to pitch that with the Joker, I think that that's the universe that they should try to live in. I think that should be their own thing. Like you said, stop trying to reinvent the wheel and do something different that's going to stand out. And we saw with the Joker that it really worked. It really worked for them, I think, very well. And the Joker, in my opinion, was one of the best comic book movies that I've ever seen. And it had like no connection to any of that other stuff, but it was just its own thing. And it was just a great acting. Like Joaquin Phoenix is out here, winning awards for his performance there. And that's what they should focus on. Like, don't get me wrong. I love the MCU, and they do have some notable actors. I probably would look at Doctor Strange and some of those guys that play there, but they don't have Joaquin Phoenixes. Like, they don't have guys that came out and just won Grammys. Outside of Doctor Strange, that's probably the best actor that they have. But even though I feel like Robert Downey Jr. possibly should have received some more notoriety for his development of Tony Stark from day one up until Endgame, it didn't hold a candle near the performance that Joaquin Phoenix did with the Joker, because he made you sympathize with the Joker. There was a message there. Todd Phillips did a great job directing that. And that's what they should focus on. Like, get good actors. Don't just get like random guys that would just want to hop in these movies and not give good performances. Even when you go back to The Dark Knight, right? Like, the reason that I love The Dark Knight so much was Heath Ledger's performance as an actor.
The Joker was one of the best I've ever seen. Like, hands down, like one of the best Jokers to play the role.
So to me, like, I feel like you can do that with a Lex Luthor or someone like that. Like, you can do that with some of those DC characters. They just have to get the right actors. Now, I will say the guy that they had play Aquaman, he's a pretty decent actor, but I just feel like the role and the script just didn't really match up with his acting abilities. But I think that that's what they need to get into. But I don't think that DC is necessarily dead, because they do have this stuff that they've learned from the Joker, from Wonder Woman. They just have to kind of get back to what we're saying, which is make better movies, be more in tune with the actual source material, get directors that are actually going to do the right thing. And I think another move that they made that was a good one is don't be afraid to go and go after guys from the Marvel side. So them going after James Gunn, I think that was a great move, especially with him doing the Suicide Squad. Like, I can't wait to see that. Like, that's going to be a pretty dope showing. But outside of that, let's talk about. So we talked about DC. We talked about the state of DC. I got to talk about Dragon Ball, bro. Like Super is gone. Like what is going on? I'm just trying to figure out, are they ever going to continue the story of Super? Because we've seen that they've got the manga out right now with Moro. We've seen them doing other things in terms of Dragon Ball Heroes, telling alternate universe stories and alternate timeline stories and stuff like that. But it's been a while since they've actually dropped a Super episode. Do you think that they're going to bring Super back, or like, what are your thoughts on Super as a whole in comparison to some of the other shows that they've had?
I feel like with Super they're gonna take their time with it because as we all know, if you watch Super, the animation was not that good. So I think they want to probably take their time, with it. And they may release another series. I don't know. I mean, because they don't have any reason not to. The only thing is like they probably don't want to end up being like Boruto right about now, where like the manga and the anime aren't in sync, and Boruto is basically just like a whole filler show with like bits and pieces of them finally catching up to the actual manga, because they introduced, the major thing they did was they introduced Brawly into like Super and as canon. Even though it wasn't the original Brawly, it was still, everybody was hyped about it. You know what I mean? So I don't know. It's hard because like a lot of times anime studios take a break and they won't produce a season and then it might come out later. I feel like honestly, if they didn't release a new series after like the Brawley movie, it may not, because that was at peak hype for Super.
Right.
So that was what, like a year after like the series had wrapped up?
I think so. Yeah, it was like because they ended up wrapping the series because they had to get all of their great animators to work on the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think like you said, we got a couple things that were canon in that movie. We got Brawley being confirmed as canon. He had his own Super Saiyan Rage form. They explained how he was so strong. I like the fact that they kind of left it open for him to possibly at one point join the Z Warriors. They kind of left the door open on that. Like him and Goku's relationship started off rocky, but it ended pretty well. They also left the door open. Well, they also confirmed Gogeta is canon. That was another big one, right? Gogeta had never been canon.
Gogeta is finally canon. So that too. So I feel like that would have been the perfect time to like they're going to wait till the manga wraps up so they can have all that material to go off of, right, or it might not come out. It's hard with anime. Anime is way different from like other forms of media in the sense of like, if it's not a wholeheartedly original anime and they're for like the manga to wrap up, you could be waiting for a while because you don't want to run into the whole Bleach One Piece problem where like the anime catches up to the manga and the manga itself isn't done. So right, you get like all these filler. Bleach was notorious for that with those filler. Naruto was notorious for that too with the filler arcs. Like Bleach had the Bount arc, and you're just like, what the heck is this? These people, these puppets, bounce and stuff like that. And it had nothing to do with the manga. That's because they had caught up to the manga and all this other stuff. So it's kind of like hard to say. Would I like to see Super come back? Yes, because I would like to see what they're gonna do. Have I been keeping up with the manga? No, I've been keeping up with like bits and pieces of it, so I'm not entirely sure what they're doing in the manga. But it would be nice to see Brawley come back in some shape, form, or way. And I feel like that'd be an interesting dynamic between him, Goku, and Vegeta.
Right.
Especially since Brawley seems like he's probably be the most powerful one out of the group.
Right, definitely. And that's like, I love how they did that because it shows why they explain why he hadn't shown up until this point, because he was on a planet I'm pretty sure everybody, if you're watching this video, you should know this. So If you want to hear spoilers and you don't want to hear this, don't listen now. But we're gonna talk about these spoilers though. But anyways, he's been on a planet. They explain what happened. They explain the dynamic, how King Vegeta thought that he was a threat, wanted him sent away because he thought he was going to be the strongest Saiyan out of all of them. Their plan ends up essentially backfiring, and then he's essentially discovered, right? Like Frieza pretty much goes and finds him and is trying to use him as a pawn to fight Goku and Vegeta. And he's just like off rip, raw power, no training, no nothing, just already getting with them and just going to different levels and different levels. And they had to use a fusion of Gogeta to even beat him. So just imagine like if he's able to train with them and get stronger, like Cyrus is saying, he could easily end up being the strongest person in the universe. But the cool thing is they also left the door open for some of, and I love how they're doing this, because what they're doing is they're getting rid of a lot of the filler stuff and they're going after stuff that the fans want. They want to go after guys like Broly, but another guy that they hinted at was Cooler. They kind of hinted at Cooler at the end where Frieza's like, I need to go and find someone that I can team up with. And if they bring in Cooler, dog, like there's so many different directions that they can go in with it. And I think what I loved about it was when we got Super, right? If you remember, there was the movie first. There was like the Battle of Gods movie, and then there was the Resurrection F movie. And what they did was they took those, they changed them a little bit, and then that was like the first 2 seasons of Super. Because I remember I talked to you and I was like, man, I don't even want to watch these first couple of seasons because we already seen it. And you were like, nah, bro, like it's past that now. Like I think it was around the Goku Black arc, and you got me rolled back into it. And I was like, man. And for me, like, so say whatever you want to about knocking Super and all of that, because I know some people don't like Super. But you can't say that Goku Black arc, that history of Trunks, like coming back, future Trunks and finish, that was some of the best work that I think that this series had. And I think like Goku Black for me as a villain, Zamasu, like, bro, that was one of like my favorite villains. Like to me, he's like up there with like Frieza, Cell Tier, Majin Buu. I think like for this series, for Super, I think that I could personally put him up in there because he was just like, he just hated anybody that wasn't a god, bro. And it was just like, how are they gonna get rid of this dude? But I really love that aspect of the series. But I think if they were to continue it, you start off, it's a no-brainer that you start off with the Broly thing. Now, this is the thing that I think scares me about that, and what scares me about Super possibly not returning as a TV show. They had so much success with the movie. Like they had to put all of their best animators. If you've ever seen this movie, if you haven't seen this movie, you definitely need to check it out. It's clearly like the best anime that they have ever come out with. They do some crazy things in that movie. But what scares me is I feel like they could make more money and be able to spend more time, like Kaiser was saying, in terms of putting their best animators in there and not rushing it. They could do more of that from a movie standpoint than they can with the actual TV show. And they also wouldn't have, as Kaiser talked about, the manga conflict. That was a huge reason that they probably had to do it, because they surpassed the manga. And so the manga was trying to catch up to what was happening in the show, and there was just a lot of rushing. But that's what scares me is if they made so much money on the movie, are they going to be tempted to come back and do shows when they can just wrap it up in a whole movie? So that's what really scares me on that front. So I hope that it comes back. I hope that we get the right anime. Like I'm not an anime snob. I knew that they were reusing some of the same stuff and changing the colors, but I honestly didn't care, bro. I was just like, give me Super whenever you can, and just keep giving it to me. But I understand like a lot of people were like, oh, this animation is trash.
I feel like the biggest problem they're gonna have if they do decide to come back is the starting off point. Are they gonna start with Broly? Are they gonna start with the where they were at the manga? The manga with the what's the guy name?
The moral arc. It seemed like that. It seemed like, and from the manga standpoint, if I'm not mistaken, that's supposed to take place after the Broly thing. It's like they had shown like them fighting Broly, and then they were like, all right, and then it was like sometime after this. So it's supposed to be, at least by the manga standards, it's supposed to be after that.
Yes, that's the thing that confused me. Well, I didn't know whether the moral thing was before Brawley or after Brawley, because it really wasn't too clear. Because honestly, that Brawley movie came out of nowhere. Because I remember when they first was like talking about it, everybody thought he was gonna be fighting like the legendary Super Saiyan, like the past Super Saiyan, whatever his name, I can't think of his name off the top of my head. The Super Saiyan from the very first Super Saiyan, but they end up being Brawley. But I don't know, it'd just be weird. It's just weird to see where they start off, where they're gonna go. Are they gonna start with the Brawley movie? Are they gonna start with the Morrow arc and then go from there? I feel like what they would do is start for Brawley and then go into the Morrow arc, because that way it'll still give the manga time to like, space itself even further. Because anime, one episode of anime could take up like 4 or 5 chapters of a manga.
Right.
So you can catch up. You can catch up with a manga fast in an anime. So that's the thing with that. But I would definitely love to see Super come back, and hopefully it won't get the Boruto the Boruto effect. Cause
right. One thing I wonder is, like, we talk about Super and stuff. Obviously, that's supposed to take place in that kind of sped up realm of the end of Majin Buu, in that 10 years that passes. That's what this is supposed to be. So one thing that I think kind of throws that off is, are we ever going to be able to see Oob? Like, is it going to get to the point where it catches up to that 10 years and it continues on? Or where do we go from there? Because in the manga, like you talked about, they've showed Oob. Like, they've given us little progress updates on Oob and where he's at in life. And they've even kind of hinted it and talked about him and referred to him without saying his name. But do you think that are we gonna get a continuation on from that point of 10 years? Or do you think that that's just what it is?
Is he is he still a child? And
from what I remember, I think he was still a child. He was still like a super young child. I think they showed him on like a farm or something with his family, and it was in the manga. They didn't show that part in the actual show. I think the only time that they kind of referenced him was when they were talking about the Tournament of Power, and I think he was talking to 17, and they kind of referenced like, you haven't been keeping your eye on, people that are strong on Earth.
Yeah, no, I mean, because it really weren't that many strong people. I mean, really weren't that many strong. I mean, I guess it depends on your definition of strong. Their definition of strong, because if we compare people to Goku and Vegeta, there aren't that many strong people, because Saiyans are completely outclass everybody at this point. Like, the funniest thing with that was like, whenever it's like, how the heck is people like 17 and Krillin keeping up with Goku when Krillin ain't training like however long? Like, I can understand Tien and Piccolo, because Tien and Piccolo train constantly, even though they don't have to.
Right.
Krillin stopped training. Gohan, RP that boy.
That's for another show, man. That's for another show. How criminal they did him.
They did Gohan so dirty. They might as well should just thrown in Goten and Trunks.
Right.
Well, they threw in Roshi and Krillin and 17. I kind of understand, because androids don't really necessarily lose power over the years, because I've always wondered about that with the androids. Do they just like, can they train to get more powerful, or do they just like, are they just powerful? Because they never really like elaborated when it came to the androids or cyborgs. Technically cyborgs.
Yeah, it was just like Android 17 was just stronger, even though he became like a wildlife reserve guy, which that was kind of weird. But I mean, 17, so I overlooked it.
He always seemed like he was gonna be like a wild. He always seemed like he had a thing for nature. I mean, his whole getup was like kind of Wild West ish. Even though I felt like that was more so like Android 16 thing. I don't know. I wouldn't mind seeing Super come back. I wouldn't mind seeing Super come back. It'd probably just have to find a good jumping off part to start at. I guess Brawley would be the best. Probably would be the best part to come back to. But it could also just be like, no, we're just gonna go ahead and just moral thing, because that was a really interesting situation too. But I guess like the biggest problem with that is like the power creep. Dragon Ball Z has been power creeping for a long time.
Right.
Like
It's hard to tell. There's new forms. There's
power ups are irrelevant now. Like, so it's just like, and apparently power ups don't even matter anymore. Like, you can just train really hard and still beat people. You know?
Right. Yeah. No, I feel you on that. There's a lot of stuff that's broken. I think one of the other aspects that's broken is we kind of have gotten used to the story centering around Goku and Vegeta, and it's kind of in a sense outside of the Future Trunks series. It's kind of caused like those guys like Goten and regular time Trunks to kind of fall by the wayside. Gohan, like, do you think that one aspect that they need to change is like maybe they should do some spinoff shows so that they can show like other people's side of things and do more development on that instead of just fully circling on Goku?
Yeah, that would definitely be something good to do. Like, cause say what you will about GT, at least GT had developed Goten and Trunks enough. Especially Goten. Goten got like some development there. Like, he was a teenager, he was girl crazy, he was trying to hang out and that kind of good stuff. But in Super and the main continuity Dragon Ball, they still look like they're like what, 7, 8?
Yeah, they don't look like they've even aged. It's like
age. Like, it's the weirdest thing. Like, they should at least look a little bit older. They still look like kids. They still act the same. And like, even their fusion doesn't even hit hard anymore. Like, I feel like a lot of like the maybe like Gohan and probably like Piccolo could take on a Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks and either win or draw with him. Well, Gohan probably wreck him, but I feel like Piccolo and Tien could probably legit take on a Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks and either draw or come out edge out a win, just because of the fact that like they just don't take Goten and Trunks serious, which sucks because Buu arc.
Yeah, that was true.
They was getting off. They was giving Majin Buu the work, but now it just seems like they don't even do anything with them. They're just different comic relief every now and again.
Yeah, and it's like those characters, like you said, it's like, why are you wasting them? It's like they're on the journey to ending up like Gohan, like, which is you have this moment where you clearly are probably one of the strongest characters in the show, and then you just fall off out of nowhere for like reasons unbeknownst to the audience. It's just like, what's going on? And it's like, I feel like they did that with Gohan, but we'll talk about that on another show. But the one thing that I do like that they are doing are they're kind of trying to distinguish between different levels of power that the Saiyans can tap into. So we saw Super Saiyan Rage Trunks. That was something that Goku can't do. We saw Goku with the Ultra Instinct. That's something that Vegeta, I guess, essentially couldn't do. Maybe he will be able to do it. And then we saw with Vegeta, they kind of did his whole blue form. I don't know what it was called, but it was like royal blue or something like that. I do like the fact that they're kind of giving Saiyans different types of powers that they can tap into. I think they needed to do the same with Gotenks maybe as well. But before we wrap up, Sars, was there anything that we didn't touch on that we should touch on? Like, is there anything, do we want to touch on anything about Star Wars? Or, I mean, we're going to be giving you guys plenty of content. So this is just the first go round, but get used to us. Be sure to subscribe. But was there anything else that we needed to tap on that's like emergency news before we get out of here?
If you haven't checked out DC's Dark Side War, Dark Apocalypse War, definitely check it out. It's actually a really good movie. It actually is going to set up the reboot for the DC universe, animated universe. Even though DC's live action universe isn't doing so well, their animated universe is alive and well, and it is 10 times better. Like, hands down, nothing is competing with their animated universe. Definitely check that out. Definitely.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. Like you said, before we had this, Kaiser told me to check it out, and I watched it, and it was pretty good. And all of those, I think you were the one that put me on the actual animated movies. The animated movies are out of the park. So if you ever get a chance, check out any of them. And I think that whoever's doing those animated movies, they need to bring them in as a consultant for the real movies because the storytelling in those is just mind blowing. But that's it. Be sure that you guys check back. We're still naming this thing. We're still getting everything together. But you can definitely be sure to check out our insight on this. We may have more members joining us in the future as well. So stay tuned for that. And we're out.
All right.